here we are, years later.
Hello, my name is Nicol van den Berg. I am a promoter slash organizer in the live music scene. I've been doing it for almost 20 years, since I was 16 years old. I've been at Oppikoppi, Good Luck Bar, Bushfire Festival, and festivals all around Southern Africa. And that is what I do. Yeah.
And Nicol, so how did you start out in the industry, events?
I started out with giving out flyers and selling CDs, like a roadie type thing. I knew someone who managed some artists, and I, as a young kid, went and they put up their flyers and their posters, and then went and sold CDs for them. I did that for a few years, and then it just kind of escalated, rolled to where I am today.
And how old were you then?
I was 16.
Okay, still in school, high school?
I was still in high school. It was like a vacation thing.
Okay.
And then I met someone, got another job. It was more of a reason for me to go to a party. I couldn't afford it otherwise, so I was like, cool, I'll go work, then I can at least experience it and like also see it. And that's sort of how it all went. I always just went because I wanted to go to the party, and I couldn't afford it.
Yeah. So you're still an amateur back then?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I think we're all still a bunch of amateurs.
Yeah. But then how did your progression now go into when you started doing it as a living? Explain to us that progression.
So I did that in school. Then I went to university, and I sort of became the porch guy. I studied in Potchefstroom.
Okay.
And so when bands started touring there, it was also the era when MK, the music channel, was very prominent. And people would phone me, oh, you're the porch guy. I'm going to send you flyers. It's just, if you start in the music business, you never stop giving out flyers. That's sort of how it works. You don't get promoted from giving out flyers. So then I was that person, and through the university and Potchefstroom events, I met the people at Oppikoppi. Then I started working for them, and also just freelancing, and then eventually they offered me a job, and I ended up being the festival director for 5 years.
Okay.
Between 2010 and 2015, Oppikoppi, and then I had a live music venue with one of my friends, and it was called the Good Luck Bar. It was a very cool place, a great live music venue here in the heart of our beautiful city. And then the world ended for people in the music industry or in the vape industry, and then we're all back here now, just picking up the broken pieces. But on a positive note, I think it is important. Sometimes everything has to die for anything to live, and I think it was important that we took one little COVID and our entire industry was destroyed. And I think that is a great point from where to work and to make sure what happens if something like this happens again in future. We've got the island options, but what is our other options? Anyway, yes.
Okay. So obviously you did the events, handing out flyers, and you met the guys at Oppikoppi. Before Oppikoppi, were you really making money then?
Yes, I wrote it off as if I go there and I get a free ticket, just get some food, I can get some drinks, and it keeps me busy. Even if I had the money, I can't party the whole day. It's just I like being busy. So if I got 500 rand, if I went home with 50 bucks at the end of the day, and I had a great experience, that was enough for me. It's just, and then it's just when I started doing the events, it's a hit and miss. Sometimes you make good money, and then you can take a few hits. But yeah, it's just transferring into the just live music event full-time business. It's a very difficult to do. But I went to university like the good Afrikaans Christian boy I am, and then there I realized I see how the world is. This isn't what I want to do, and I don't want to sit in traffic I don't want people telling me I should cut my beard because it's not professional. It's got nothing to do with my ability. And then sort of music came along, and I sort of ran away with the circus, with like music and festivals. We had a thing called the MK Up Do, which we took bands, 10 bands, drove around the coast over December. Every town we would play, like old school stuff. So yeah, I ran away with the circus and joined the music industry. You don't choose the music industry; it chooses you. Just like the top Afrikaans person in that industry. So I learned from a great person. So it was like the flyer stuff, but then I would go, listen here, it's evening now, go backstage. Your job, go to all the artists. You make sure they have a drink in their hand, they're happy. You don't do a matani then, even though you're at school, you stir, blah, blah, blah. And even so, then it was the flyer thing to pay and stuff, and then at night I would make real money. Looking after artists. I started to, I saw the potential early, and just having access to like people like that and getting to know them. So it was easy also meeting the Oppikoppi people.
So you were a rookie. Basically, that's where you cut your teeth.
Yes.
And just exploring this whole world of events.
Just
and
seeing where it
and
takes.
saying, this is my passion now.
This is my passion. It's just, I wouldn't say it's my passion. It's just a lot of other things that I'm more passionate about. But I like the environment. I like the creativity. I like the free spirit and stuff.
What made or what influenced that decision that you get chosen to work at Oppikoppi? Like how do you land now? Obviously, that Oppikoppi from there.
So I met someone random who was like, "Hey man, don't you have a job for me? Because I want to go to this festival." And so the first Oppikoppi 10, I had a moon mat and I taught tickets at the gate. Like 5 years later, I was like festival director. But I started that just as a student job. And in that time, I did a lot with the avant-tour people, like the MK staff, and just the touring with bands and being the Potchefstroom person. So I got very involved with like that crowd. And then as I kind of finished university, I was a little bit of the year and like freelancing there. And Oppikoppi said, "Well, here is something if you're interested in moving to Pretoria," which I did. Cool, here it is. So it was. I had a lot of things. I had some decisions to make, and that was kind of the first people that offered me, like, okay, cool, there is something that I know I can every month, pay my student debt. So that's how I ended up in Pretoria, Oppikoppi.
So now between we're just gonna go in a bit of detail between you starting that Oppikoppi gig and you being the festival director. What roles did you do in between, and how long did it even take you to get that officially, and what relationships, like what cemented that?
So I would like to believe it's because I'm hardworking, but so I started with giving out doing the tickets and stuff like that. And then the year after that, they were like, "Don't you want to be a security supervisor?" I think you just go around and just facilitate and just if there's a problem in section A, that there's someone with the radio saying, "Hey man, there's a problem in section A." It's more that type of thing. So I did that for a year or two, but in the meantime I had to organize more staff to come. They did other events in Potchefstroom and all around, like in Joburg and Renshaw, and they would always phone me. So I gradually started doing more. It was gates for many years, and at the festival it was some security, and then I helped with stalls 1 year, and then I did fencing the 1 year. But in over like 5-6 years, then they said, "Listen, don't you want to come move to Pretoria, and we're gonna just train you like how the whole festival works, and the communication and." So I was sort of also just groomed to look after that position for a few years.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay, so now.
So it wasn't like an pivot. It was like, "Listen here, let's take it." I started with the Easter Festival, one with someone else, and then eventually I knew what was going on there.
Yeah. So now.
I know like logistical.
Yeah.
Communication.
Okay, so now you've now been groomed and you've learned as the other aspects of the festival. Now you're festival director, So now take us through that journey of being the festival director, and also there was obviously a previous festival director, and how did that transition even happen, and what also differentiated you?
I wish I could give you an answer, but I think our climate and how our festival scene is set up in South Africa doesn't really work like that. because the festival owner is ultimately, if he's the vision person, or like if it's just I am just the person working, if it's just that has to work with my technical team and this one and that one, but it's not. If it, I will always try and implement things to be more efficient. So how can we have a mobile printer? How can we charge this? How can we be efficient? Because it's setting up in the middle of nowhere most of the time. And except for those type of personal things, I can't really say anything. I was a communications guy that, if it's just made sure X, Y, and Z and the sponsors, this, that, So I wish we could get into a position in our festival environment that we can say, listen here, okay, cool. What, if you're the young guy, what do you want to implement? Because the older people don't go out anymore. At our age, we don't even go out. You don't ask me what the young kids are doing, because I'm not like the right person to ask. Who is your target market, and is that person does he know what the audience wants, or what is the general feeling of the audience? Does he know who the audience is?
Okay. Maybe just briefly also, because it's important to the next section. Give us briefly what was the vision of Oppikoppi? Like, what was the market before you entered, and then we'll go from there. What happened when you then entered? Like, what was the market? How did it all begin? Just even briefly.
So the festival started in, I think, 95. And it started there in Northern, and it was just a place for original music players, as far as I understand it. And people of that era, like Carl, Berg, and all those people were involved. It's always been a very small community. So when I was an 18-year-old kid and I started going there, I saw it as a very new South African festival. But I saw bands like Malika, just great influence as a Afrikaans kid, But it was also the time when MTN started. And so when I took over, to get back to that question, then people saw it as an Afrikaans rock festival. People always say, oh yeah, it's this Afrikaans rock festival. Why isn't there more rock? And for me, it was never a rock. So I always saw it as this multicultural blend. So that is where it was, like the culture was, I would say. It's just MK was at the height of its power. When people had music videos like they still do. And so it became more of a it became just modern media took over. It was music videos, social media came, big posts. And we entered that era when I was there. It's just billboard, but you started advertising on billboards. The fly thing didn't really happen anymore. It looks like people are starting to do it again, but at some point people completely stopped doing that. It was just it was posters. It was before we advertised on our phones. So that was sort of the climate, and the world wasn't as fast. People just, it was before the smartphone.
So, so would you then say that was in the blow up of Oppikoppi, when it is this thing called Oppikoppi?
Yes, I think it contributed to mass media. Obviously, contributed to that, to the growth. But I also believe it led to the downfall, because Oppikoppi worked because it was rough and dirty and fun and everything. But you didn't really videograph. People didn't fight because they wanted to eat on someone's corner, because everybody was dirty. And the more you bring in just the media side of it, then criminals start seeing what there is to steal. Then people are more conscious of how they look. But you kind of lose that bohemianness, which any great thing is bound to lose. But yeah, so I think that is, I'm very grateful that I was there in a very cool period of time when festivals were made. It was a great group of people, a lot of fun. Yeah.
Okay. And then in terms of the now introducing I call it the black bands. Is that area where now the indie black bands were now entering that Oppikoppi era. know.
Yeah.
And how did that be able to fuse in properly?
I think people enjoyed watching it, but I don't think it really fused me. I think it's still not really fused me. It's just we have like the indie black bands, but they're not just well known. But in a very small indie market, they should be very well known. And that's because of different reasons. One being it's very difficult because we need to kind of cross pollinate. We need to get more white people at the black clubs and more black indie kids at the white clubs type thing, you know. So it's because our market is so small. Now you're going to go just on the indie thing. We're already a small market, but it's important that everybody kind of knows who that man is. But we don't have that fusion. You know, I don't think we've got the mentorship where you're going to say you're starting out here to be copy as a, if you won the battle of the bands or whatever, you're like heavy fresh out of the garage. How do you transfer? How do you grow to become the next headlining act? And we don't really have that process. You can't. I can't really. Maybe for police, is the only example. But it's just, I can't give an example of a band that started in all the more than 10 years that I worked on that festival. It's just that was someone that started out the Battle of the Band thing and that ended as a headline. I can't really point any progression in that way. If it were just the headliners was also sort of the headliners, it's very business of who you know, just your social status and X, Y, and Z.
So also, it's now obviously a question of systems and also the South African festival culture. It's between there where we lose that.
Yes, no, definitely. It's just, I think our biggest lack is with communication. We live in an era with too much information and too little communication. Do we even know our fellow live music fans in our own suburb or our own town? You know, and we've got all this amazing technology. So I would think a very good step would be like, let's find out who's the people of our tribe. You know.
And then now take us to because you spoke about when now all the masses and now you have to clean up now because now there's mass media. How now it starts to go down the festival because there's this thing called there's a festival cycle for all festivals.
Yeah.
But some of them grab it quickly and they just be able to revive it. Where do you think or why do you think you could not revive it up again afterwards?
I think if you don't fix your car for 10 years, when you are going to fix it, you're going to have a very big problem to fix. You know? Instead of like, let me fix, if year one, let's fix the tires, year two, the electrics, you know? Because it's just like the campsite was fun and the hedonisticness of it was fun, but it's just, that is a very conducive culture to create crime. Slums is where crime is born, and that is pretty much what it became at the end. If it a slummy, weary way, and it was too big of a problem to fix. I think it was just because it's with the festival, it's a constant tuning. It's a constant yes. Are we gonna let's add? What are we gonna do here? What are we gonna do here? Tomorrowland. But they were taken over by like the football hooligan people, and it took them 5 years to work it out of the system, and millions of euros later. And we don't have that capacity. If we get hit by something, we don't have 5 years. That's in your part. So yeah.
And then were you there when there was that partnership between Rocking the Daisies and Oppikoppi?
I already left. I was at that party, but it's just I had already been a good luck.
Okay. But do you think Oppikoppi will come back?
No. I would love to say yes, but I don't think the culture's there. I don't think people want to stay in the bush. I would love if the idea of the brand is if it morphed into like the new decade. If it maybe somewhere closer, somewhere fine to still create that opportunity for just the black indie bands and this and that. Where does the young people see the Malaikas of our generation? Where does the young white kids get introduced to black music? If it's seeing it live, not part of You know, so I hope at some point something comes back.
So the Oppikoppi journey has now ended. What happens to you?
I moved to the I moved to the center of Johannesburg from Pretoria, from suburbia in Pretoria, and I opened a music venue. Well, we bought into a music venue, which was maybe the beginning of the problem. We bought into a venue, me and my friend, and then then we had a very cool music venue. So we had bands from all over the continent. We ran for almost 3 years. We just done some great stuff, and yeah, then I was in my good luck project.
Yeah. And that movement between Oppikoppi and Good Luck, because we saw a lot of the bands that performed at Oppikoppi and
Yes.
Good Luck, is because you had that relationship. So how did that Oppikoppi journey also contribute to how you would then run Good Luck Bar and your journey?
Okay, that is a good question. So my partner, business partner, it was Garrett Wilson who booked the bands for Oppikoppi, so Southern Gypsy and everything. So there's just a mutual. We all know the same people. And he was also the booker for Oppikoppi, so that's why there was a lot of bands that from Oppikoppi went there, and just the music industry is only so big, you know, and that's why it was just very easy for us to become very successful, very cool music venue. We had bands from 5 continents, a lot of countries, ambassadors, launches. We did some very cool stuff.
Okay. And then, because what are the, I think, challenges? I mean, you told us the challenges of Oppikoppi. What are the challenges of now owning a club or a venue?
Anybody who has ever owned a club will tell you it's not the most fun job in the world. It is a very tough job. It's long hours. It looks glamorous, but mate, it isn't always. But it is just. I nearly killed myself. You know, it's just 6 days a week. Just because I had like it was start. Just like it's a lot of things, and it was like my first grown-up business, like labor law, tax, just heavy government-related stuff, which was ultimately my downfall as well.
And then, why did you choose that specific location? I know you bought into the business, but why that particular one? Also, why that particular location?
It sort of all made sense at the time. It wasn't just like, okay, we weighed this against it. It was like, here's a spot. Just actually, I didn't want to do just big scale stuff anymore. I was wanting for like a little bit of a smaller setup, and then that opportunity just came across, and it was just like, yo, I can't let this. But someone came and said, "Disney, I've got the space. I don't know what to do." I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't have the space. It was. That's how it got together.
Okay. And Good Luck Bar was at One Fox. I mean, you were Dirk in town. How challenging was town?
It is amazing. The city is amazing. I lived there. I've been here for 3 years, and I lived there for 5 years, like just across the road. And I have never lived in a more safe place in my life. All the years I've lived in South Africa, because I lived in a very multicultural life. I thought I was like, I watched bands and thought I was a progressive white person until I got to town, and then it was like, no, I'm not. It's just living. But that's the time I met you as well. So it's just realizing, okay, there's a lot of stuff that I just purely don't know. I can think I'm as progressive as possible, but I'm not. You know, it's just seeing how the city really works. The Joburg works. Joburg CBD is not Johannesburg. Johannesburg is not Africa. But it was great seeing that. Getting to really understand our city and culture.
And then, okay, so 3 years at the Good Luck Bar, and then what happens after that?
So then the Good Luck Bar just ended. It was a complicated story. And then And then just I sort of tried some ideas. That's where I got fully involved with Bushfire. Just up until then, I knew them and I invited them to Oppikoppi and worked on the gates a few times. But then I started with Bushfire, helping them with their bars and staffing. And then I did that like for a year, two, and then the world ended.
Okay. And then so how did Bushfire find you now? Like that time now when you start the relationship with Bushfire. How does that happen?
So like I said, I worked at the festival years ago with Plankton tickets. I worked with Tian, he took me with, helped scan tickets in, blah blah blah. So I met the people when I was still at the copy. I invited them, like, listen, man, come see what we do. Maybe there's things because some of their staff came to help us. I think it's very important in the music industry that we have these collaborations between festivals, venues, promoters, and that. And then life happened, and then so the lady that makes Bushfire merch, Inner City Inc., is the place at Victoria Yards where we are now that I work for. And I had introduced Natasha to them years ago. And then they told her they're looking for someone. She told me, hey, they're looking for someone. And so like it's a beautiful full circle story actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we still do make the merchandise, innercity.com. Check it out.
Okay. Before the world ends, now you're Bushfire.
Yes.
And you're in another country, in Swaziland, and how is that different from now working in another country and also on a different festival?
It was refreshing. I think it was just being in Eswatini is amazing. So, and so there's a lot of similarities between Bushfire and Oppikoppi. I think any 3-day festival in Southern Africa has a lot of similarities. It's just same problems, and I always saw Bushfire as just what Oppikoppi could have been. It's just because they just like with the restaurant involved. Every Oppikoppi we had to bring in stuff every year, so it was great seeing just how a site gets built up over years and years. That was I would say the biggest difference as well. That long-term investment versus throwing a party, even if it is over a long period.
And how different were your roles at Oppikoppi and Bushfire?
So at the end of Oppikoppi, I was just the festival director for a while, and then I did again like different things. Then I was at the gates again, then I was at the bars, and I just finished with like bars. So bars was sort of my most progressive, natural thing. Yeah, and then it was just is the orders placed. It's more of a just consultant thing that I just. So I come in, okay, cool. We order the stuff. Just, okay, cool. Fridges. Just let's get all the communication together. Just let's roll out quickly. Let's make it more efficient. That's what we developed. That's what I helped them develop over the last 2 years.
And just like being a festival director and event management, the bars, you also grew into it. Would you say you had to study? You just
No, because I when I was the bar story starts way young. So when I was a kid, my grandfather used to own a bottle store. So when I was very small, I would go just play in the bottle store. When I grew up, I worked in the bottle store. Like before I did festivals. So that was at night I would be the barman for my grandfather and my family. So I've been a barman since I was like 5. So that's actually where it started. So it's like second nature.
And then tell us about the relationships now that you have with these, because now obviously you've built sort of like a social, you now have social capital. In terms of networking, relations, brands. At some point, you were also the brand ambassador for Jägermeister.
No, I wasn't the brand. I'm good friends with them.
Oh, you're good friends.
And I went with them on a trip. They took me to the head office.
Tell us about that.
That was amazing. So they took us, a few other venue owners, to the Oktoberfest in Munich. They treated us, took us to the Jägermeister factory. It was amazing.
Okay. And then
Oh, Jägermeister.
with obviously you've got your own personal projects and the stuff that you do on your own, and then tell us about the network of with the other events and the other guys that you work with.
So that year when I started at Bushfire, just add that. So I also just took the time to just kind of explore some stuff. I took a bus and I went to Malawi's Lake of Star Festival to go check that out. Just I went to Zambia. It was a busy shores. And so I tried to just get a bit of a broader picture. Just I know just with Oppikoppi we traveled the whole country with events and stuff, so I sort of know that pretty well. And but now I love traveling in Africa. Then I wanna so it was important for me to find out what is their struggles, because if we really want to grow our industry, it's important that we reach out to our neighboring countries. That way we can also get more governments and all of that involved.
So I mean, from everything that we spoke about and everything you've said, and obviously there's more. Your journey in the events and festivals career literally was like it found you. It was a natural progression.
Yeah, I wouldn't just call it like the music industry or just events. I would just call it my life is sort of like that. So see where the stream goes. There's no point in fighting. What needs to happen will happen. You know, be vigilant, be just active, but you can't swim against the stream. So sometimes it's cool. This is the thing. Just don't. Let's see where it goes. So I think I'm grateful because I go down the stream, and where I see a branch, I try and grab it. See it more like that. I mean, sometimes I get pulled into another stream completely, but it wouldn't have started if I didn't jump into the river in the first place. So it's more that makes sense.
And obviously you've worked with other festival managers and things like that. I think now I'm just trying to bring it home into the actual reason why we're actually even doing this interview in the first place, because we're trying to highlight the different careers aspects and different things you can do in this industry, and for you it's different. You found your own way. Understand? How would you advise people that want to do what you're doing? A kid says, I want to be a festival director, I want to manage bars, because it's a career. So someone gets paid for that. So how do they now get into things like that, given your path?
I would say this would be general advice for anything that you're interested in or want to do. Is just show up. So 75% of all battles is just showing up. Even then, when you're there, you can decide: is this what I want to do? I've got a lot of friends who would like, yes, man, I love what you do. This just isn't for me. Cool, and they go down a different street, but they showed up. And now years later, they phone me like, yes, man, maybe we should have that conversation of 20 years ago again. But it's showing if you're interested in something, be there. It's just don't out with it. Just people shouldn't be taken advantage of. But just don't always start with how much am I getting paid and when am I leaving. Just ask that like 3 questions down. Give it first do that, because a lot of just my path that I took is just, hey, can I help you? That's how I met the Oppikoppi people. They were busy putting in umbrellas, and I was like, listen, man, I'm finished with my flyers. Can I help you? And they were like, no, man, I'm finished. And I helped them with the umbrellas, and they were like, oh, what do you do? That's how I met. You know, it's just with it, and I think our country will be so much more greater if we just like, can I help you? What can I do? With it, anyway.
And then I'm glad you mentioned that, because we also had this conversation, me and you, about how 80% of the events you've done, they probably never paid, and about only 20 actually were good paying events. How was that like for you? How was that?
So is anybody in the
Yeah. Yeah, we can go.
Anybody in the creative industry, just creative business knows it's a hard life. It's a rewarding life. It's a fun life, but it's not for the faint of heart. And just with the 80-20 thing, I don't think it's a music problem. I think it's a capitalistic problem. Just any industry is going to tell you the same thing. Even the people that have more than the music industry will tell you exactly the same thing. Yes, man, we only get 20%. 80% goes to the 1% people. And I think it's a global problem. So I don't think our problem is unique. I think it's just very easy to take advantage of creative people because they're not as heavy into business things. Think differently about it, but it's not a unique problem to music.
What's the worst event you've ever organized?
Yes, I've had so many strange events. This is a tough question. I have seen very crazy things. I've been at parties where it's just like a natural disaster can kill a bunch of people. I was at an event where this big Afrikaans biker came, like a big guy, with this massive pig on his motorbike helmet. He had this massive cup, put it down like a giant, put it down in front of me. He's like, give me a brand new Coke, brand new Coke. Like I poured him like this, like no, not a double, it was like a triple or something. He took it back, took a sip, took his teeth out. So did it, put it back in, and he gave me back the cup. And it was like, hey, a giggelende brand. Hey, have a giggling brand. It was like, cheers, man. That is I've seen just people lose their keys. I've seen people just light up their car, like make a fire out of their car. I've seen that once. Yeah, I've got a lot of X-rated stories as well, which I won't tell.
And the best event you've ever put together, personally?
Yes, a big highlight for me was having Springbok Nicol at the Luck. That was a very cool moment for me, I would say. But there's so many over so many years. I can't tell you how many. There's hundreds of events and hundreds of parties and hundreds of great experiences and wonderful people met. So it's all kind of blurred into one life.
And now, now we're getting to the end of the world. So, what was like that? By the way, the end of the world is the COVID pandemic era. Yes.
So between the pandemic and just me finishing Good Luck or doing the other stuff, things were already tight. So when I went into the pandemic, since I was already sort of used to just a lot of like the problems that later became very bigger. And just it was just luckily I'm a positive person, so I just tried and hustled and I tried this and just in all of just I all it obviously went to hell and I had to move back to my parents. And sad and depressing story, but I'm glad I never didn't try. The same with Good Luck Ball. It's just at no point can I say I didn't give my best. At any whether it's Oppikoppi or Good Luck Ball, any of that. I always try and give my best. We'll go the extra mile for the event, for what it is that whether the organizer or whoever is to get that thing across, because our consumers is important. They pay that 200 rand ticket.
So now coming out of because none of us worked during COVID. What happens now post COVID?
So I tried just before COVID and just up until heavy into COVID, I tried to open the Jameson.
The Jameson.
Well, so I wanted to open the Jameson. Yeah. Cool, and I will in future. Things must just work out. So I just I've been ticking away. Just after I had moved back to my parents, just I had a bit of an ostrich few months where I've just put my head in the ground and got myself by a helmet. Never to do just one thing. So I have a lot of just speaker in the fear. And and I think that's the creative approach, the music approach. You can't just do one thing. You just can't be just the guitarist or just the manager or just the this. It's about doing as many things as possible and uniting as many people as possible. Get the right people. You don't have to employ them for them to help you. Just you can do a lot of different things. One day here, one day this.
And I think in closing, tell us the shift that you've seen happen. What's happening now in the industry? What's happening there in the end of the world? Like that whole transition, the shift. Where are we now?
I think we are just in the end of the this is where the world is gonna end, but in a more positive note. I think it's just the culture has changed on so many levels. People don't party as much. It's dangerous to drink and drive. So then people don't want to pay. I think a big problem just in our country and our environment is people don't want to pay for entertainment. It's just that you can get Spotify for free with an ad or something. It's just so people they'll spend R1,000 that goes to the bar or to food or whatever. It's just, or to be entertained. Let me put it like that. They'll pay R1,000 to be entertained, but they won't pay R100 to be entertained by music. So I think it's important that we adapt and see just how do we form part of a system where just you can still just go out and experience that without paying, because I think that's the big barrier to events is that just cover charge. There has to be some way to give it, get more people in, get more people to experience it. Just events.
And what is your maybe it links to that? Like, what's your whole opinion with everything? Like, basically, the industry. Do you think we wanna have those days back? Like, what's going on? Like, what's your opinion? Just general opinion.
I think.
And the conversations that you also have with obviously the guys that you've worked with, you know, those conversations. Like, what's
people are always fun of my opinions.
Yeah.
I think the industry should move away from the artist into the consumer, because they are ultimately people who pay for it. That if you just look at just all of the things that I was involved in, is there was always a shelf life period to it, just whether my control or not. Is Oppikoppi is a great party when you're 18, with maybe 17, 24, 25, if you're just brave like me, then you're like 30. But there's a cut-off age for that. The same with the music. So we need a place where we can grow with the audience, because the guy that's 40 still loves live music. But now he'll pay 10,000 rand if you just give him the opportunity, because he was there when he was a kid. You know, it's just I don't want to go out to certain places because I don't want my feet to get stuck to the floor. So when I get there, I don't want to have a drink in a plastic glass. If it's those small things that I think we're lacking, because we just as the artist. The artist doesn't have money, he doesn't have food, but we're worried about if he's happy. You know, and we're keeping up this facade. You know, instead of going, listen here, let's can be happy, tickets can be happy. Everybody can win if people just share. It's back to that capitalistic problem.
Yeah. So the whole value chain must benefit.
Exactly. The whole value chain must benefit, and I think we first need a value chain. Just we don't have any chain. If that's just I can't just I have a little bit of a network, you have a little bit of a network, this one has that one, but collectively we're worth millions. Yeah, and we've got a loyal following. The people that support music and events are just creative. They're very amazing people. They don't want what everyone else wants. And I think it's important that we focus on those people. But then it's the same with, it goes back to records, making albums or anything. Is ultimately is only those. It's the 80-20 principle. 80% of your time goes into 20% of your clients. 80% is, if it comes out of that 20%, your fan base, that's where your streams comes from, that's where your merchandise comes from, that's where the ticket sales comes from for shows, and you can focus on them. But maybe we get to a point where you have some sort of just where you take out insurance, you have like party insurance. Then you get 5 free shows, X, Y, and Z. Give it for 100 rand. We live in the era of subscription. Maybe that's our idea. Huh? Maybe someone has ideas, so I'm always open to talk and just give advice. But yeah.
Okay. No, I think it's a nice closing. And then yeah, just tell us about the brands that you're involved in, like the printing, the name of it.
So I'm involved
yeah?
with Inoffity Inc. We do amazing screen printing like this, as you can see. Then I work for Booming Media. We do this mall activations and setups, and just build stands, and just also eventing. Again, back to eventing, just like Nampu and stuff like that. Then I work with Cedar Solar, which do solar power and solar pumps. Let's save the planet while we're doing it. And then I see, then it's Bushfire and wherever just people might want my just help. See how we can make things better. Cool. Thank you so much.
Here we are, years later. I've been told I look better, so I pretend you're just a stranger. Although I try, it's all a lie, you all I had. Although I try since the last time I've been sad, 'cause I've been calling your name in my sleep when I'm dreaming. I've been calling your name in my sleep when I'm dreaming. That's when I feel alive, when I become alive. Feel alive, become alive. Feel alive, become alive. Feel alive, come alive. Feel alive. It's okay if that's what you say, but it's okay if it's better this way.